Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Hopefully you're all having a fantastic Wednesday so far. Let's see who we got in the chat. We have Ben, we have Hoop, as well as Lakeisha, Girl Dev, unfortunately Caleb. We got Grampy in here too, Grumpy Grandpa. Also got Sam, Misty, Johnny, and Maury. Let's see, I'm going to go a little bit further down. Tank, Sebastian, Phoenix, anybody else who I may be missing? Misty, hopefully I said you. I'll say again if I didn't. Liam, and everyone else who's in the stream who may not be chatting and is just watching, or if I forgot to welcome you. Welcome to the stream. I'm glad to have you in here, Forsaken, as well. Jones, Johnson, and let's switch on over. I'm trying to find the correct scene whilst looking at chat. There we go. Good morning. Well, it's actually 6 o'clock, so I guess it's not really morning, huh? I think the day's gone by a little bit too fast. Man, I mean, it's already Wednesday. I swear yesterday was literally Sunday, so not sure how this the week's already halfway done, but it is. Really surprised by how fast it's flying by. But yeah, the good news about that is we now have a lot more information about our severe threat. So that's at least one plus there. So for today, we were talking about this in the last live stream about Wednesday, which is obviously today being a sleeper threat for severe weather. It doesn't look like much is going to happen today. It looks like the capping is going to be able to hold storms from really exploding. There is the opportunity that we see a few severes today, maybe even an isolated tornado threat. If that does develop, it will be towards the 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, all the way till about 11 p.m. tonight. So just keep an eye out if you are over here just to the west of Wichita. We are going to be watching for some potentially tornadic storms, some isolated large hail, and damaging winds all being possible. But it all comes down to if a storm can get past that capping. And we really won't know that until about 8:30 or 9. So once the time comes around, about 2.5, 3 hours from now, we'll be able to figure out if any storms have actually gotten through that capping or not, which at this point, there's a few rain showers. The SPC's issued a 5% MCD out here. That means there's a 5% chance we end up with a watch. In this case, it would be probably a severe watch in this brown area. And basically, long story short, they say the potential for a supercell or two with the chance of some isolated large hail will be possible here. Not sure if they mentioned a tornado threat, actually. Yeah, so you could see a severe hail and locally strong surface wind gust. I don't think they mentioned a tornado threat. Yeah, you see a supercellar too, primarily posing the risk for hail and wind gusts. That's exactly what I was thinking too. We could get an isolated spin up tornado threat as we go towards 9 o'clock Eastern if storms are surface based and get through that capping. But overall, not really a big risk for severe weather today. Just a normal level 1 out of 5 marginal risk. 5% chance for damaging winds every 25 miles of a given point inside that brown area. Same goes for the risk of 1-inch hail there as well. Now, that is quite a large marginal risk, so the chance of us seeing one wind gust or one large hailstone inside this area is relatively high. The chance we see one of those events, one damaging wind gust or one hailstone, there is nearly a guarantee we see at least one of either one of those hazards tonight somewhere inside that brown area. But it is not a notable risk for any hazard for today. Tomorrow things change just a little bit. We do have a still 5% chance for damaging wind gusts, as well as actually a significant risk for hail. I do believe this is going to go enhanced to level 3 out of 5, probably over the Omaha Metro for large hail up to potentially 2.5, 3-inch in diameter for tomorrow. I would not be shocked if we see an enhanced risk somewhere in that area. By any means, and I also wouldn't be shocked to see an upgrade for the tornado risk. They only have a very large 2% tornado risk out all the way from the Kansas City Metro, Topeka, Kansas area, all the way up through Lincoln, Omaha, Des Moines, Iowa, back up to the Twin Cities in south central Minnesota. Wouldn't be shocked to see our 5% tornado risk introduced either north or centered over the Omaha Metro, one or the other. Either a little bit north, like up here, or directly over the Omaha Metro for that greatest tornado threat. It depends on their confidence in a supercells firing. I also would not be shocked if this uptrends significantly to the point where we're talking about a strong tornado threat. Now, at the moment, it doesn't seem like that is likely for us to see a big uptrend. Right now, it just looks like some big-time hailstones, damaging wind gust, and a couple spin-up tornadoes are all possible. But if we get a little bit better moisture, if we have a little bit lower temperatures than what's currently projected by some of our model runs, that could allow for us to see a better tornado threat develop. Sorry, YouTube's giving me a bunch of errors here. Everything good on y'all's end? It's saying my Wi-Fi is too good, believe it or not. YouTube is fussing at me for too good of Wi-Fi right now. So I may have to put a cap on that, which normally I just leave it at unlimited because my Wi-Fi is not the best, but apparently my Wi-Fi is too good right now. Everything's good? Okay. It's still giving me a bunch of errors. I don't think I can cap that while being live. I'm just going to really ignore it. As long as it's good on y'all's end, that's what matters the most. So there's your slight risk for tomorrow. Like I said, I think we could see an enhanced risk for large hail introduced centered around the Omaha Metro, as well as an upgrade to a 5% tornado risk. But overall, tomorrow probably won't end up being our biggest day out of this stretch for severe weather. Although I do want you guys to keep a very close eye on it, because all it takes is for those dew points to be a little bit better, and tomorrow could have a extremely notable tornado threat. We mentioned that in our last live stream about this being a potentially higher end tornado threat. Right now, it looks like our dew points are, they're going to be arriving just in time. It's what people call just in time moisture. And our temperatures are going to be a little bit on the higher end, probably close to the mid to upper 70s. So that may result in a much larger hail threat as opposed to a very notable tornado threat. If those temperatures are a little bit lower, those dew points are a little bit higher, we could easily be talking about multiple cells potentially having a strong tornado threat. Like I said, specifically over the Omaha, Nebraska Metro, back out towards Des Moines, Iowa for tomorrow. Friday here gets a bit of a different story. It's a lot more widespread, and there's a lot more uncertainties on Friday's risk. There's a lot of uncertainties on morning convection, which allows for a capping to build in place, and we basically don't see any thunderstorm development until 9 p.m. on Friday night, Eastern time, 9 p.m. There's another scenario where that capping doesn't hold and we see storms ignite along the whole cold front closer towards 3, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then there's also the scenario where both hold. Your capping holds, your cold front's a little late, and we end up with very little severe weather actually occurring here on Friday. So a lot of uncertainties. What I believe is going to happen is I believe we're going to meet in the middle here. I think we're going to see our cold front be a little bit on the later side because our shortwave's not the best shortwave by any means. And that's going to allow for forcing to arrive over the warm sector a little bit later. I think storms will probably end up firing closer to 6 o'clock, maybe not as late as like 9 or as early as 3, but right in the middle towards 6 o'clock. And the two areas I'm most interested in, I'm really interested in the northern mode here, really centered over Michigan, beginning near Chicago. That area there, I'm interested in that for a locally higher end tornado threat. And then I'm also interested back out here in Oklahoma into Missouri and Arkansas. So those are the two areas I'm most interested in for tornadoes on Friday. There is also another area in central Illinois that we may have to keep an eye on. But right now, I personally am a little bit too uncertain on that threat. So the one that's, in my opinion, the one that's probably going to end up going it for a 5% tornado risk for Friday is going to be this one back out here. The one in Illinois depends on exactly when storms fire, and the one in Michigan depends on how late or how early storms fire. So I don't know if there's enough confidence to introduce a 5% risk this far north, but I do think we'll see a tornado risk, at least a 2%, but likely a 5% outline back out here in Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, maybe into Texas, possibly into northern Texas. I think that might be a little bit too far south. Let me check here. Yeah, actually, no, it could also go into northern Texas as well. That is definitely very, very much possible. If this trough was just a bit faster, this would be a widespread, significant tornado outbreak. I could not actually stress that enough. This would probably have been an extremely high-end severe weather setup if our shortwave was 7, 8 hours faster. Because this shortwave, whilst it's not the best due to timing, if that timing was fixed, you would have a widespread lower level jet across this entire area of 50 to 60 knots. So it would be a very potent setup for multiple strong tornadoes across that entire risk. But thankfully, our shortwave is slow, so that results in still a notable threat for all hazards, but hopefully it pans out to be a notably lower end tornado threat just due to that timing. Timing is extremely important with these troughs. Any trough has to have the correct timing of when it traverses over the four corners, when it initiates storms, how late those storms initiate. So I don't think this one's going to be able to be that perfect trough to where it initiates those storms in the early afternoon hours, and then they, take advantage of that daytime heating. So keep a very close eye on it. I am slightly concerned for that tornado threat back out in this area. It looks like we're going to have really good dew points, potentially into the lower 70s, upper echelon 60 dew points there. So I am a little concerned about that. And outside of that, we just need to keep a very close eye on it. Once we get closer, a little bit closer, we're close, 48 hours out, but we got to get a little bit closer to where we can start seeing our HRRR run. So this is the threat for Friday. Then we go on into Saturday, and you can see it does continue. This threat, I don't know what's going to happen. Just to be straight up honest with you, I have no idea what is going to happen on Saturday. If there is any toss-up day in this entire 5-6 day stretch of severe weather, it is Saturday. My goodness, it has anything from no thunderstorms developing to a potential outbreak being a different scenarios there. So a lot of different scenarios here for Saturday's threat of severe weather. Personally, I don't see much of anything. I really don't see a lot on this risk. I don't think we will end up seeing a lot of severe weather here on Saturday. And if we do, I think it's going to be late on Saturday. And I think it's going to be focused back out into Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. That's the main area I'm watching on Saturday. I don't even know if this is going to be even a tornado threat here. There's a lot of uncertainties revolving around the shortwave as a whole. And the reason for that is there is just way too much uncertainties on how the trough on Friday will progress. So we'll just need to watch Saturday closely as well. There's just, unfortunately, a lot of uncertainties this close. So we'll need to keep an eye on that as well. And then on Sunday, I don't personally see a lot here either. You do have a significantly more amplified and much more well-organized negatively tilted trough. However, it looks like due to the last 3 days of severe weather, instability is probably going to be an extremely big limiting factor on this day. It looks like much of the open warm sector, if that's what you want to call it, because it's not really going to be that large, to be honest with you. It's only going to have 250 to about 750 instability. So I'm not very confident in a big threat for tornadoes here on Sunday either. It looks like our instability is going to be lacking, which again is probably in part to the poor timing of this trough. So overall, none of these threats for severe weather look like a moderate risk caliber setup. Just to put that out there, I don't see any of these being that high-end level 4, level 5 risks for severe weather. None of them look that potent for a severe threat. I do think we could see an enhanced risk for severe weather, and probably tomorrow, honestly, is the best chance for that. But an enhanced risk for like strong tornadoes, even that is very questionable, because like tomorrow you've got a big issue with dew points and temperatures. Friday, you've got an issue with late storm initiation, which allows for that capping to be an issue. Probably a bit of an instability issue for Saturday as well. Not so much for Friday. Friday, not as bad of an instability issue, but it does go in those overnight hours and your instability is lower. So you got a elevated risk tomorrow, meaning your dew points are too low, temperatures are climbing too high. Saturday looks like it's an instability issue. Friday looks like it's a bit of an instability issue due to the potential late initiation. Sunday looks like it's an instability issue as well. So a lot of these don't look very, very potent for severe weather, in my opinion. Well, that's interesting. I don't know who ordered the discrete storms on Monday in North Carolina and Virginia, but shoot, I will take it. Interesting that the GFS shows that. I gotta take a sounding on that. But again, even with this threat on Monday, it looks poorly timed with your trough. I have to keep an eye on that. That actually might be a good threat for tornadoes in North Carolina on Monday, depending on the timing. And there's just so much uncertainty on the timing of this trough and how it amplifies here. Now, I did see the Euro model for Sunday. I saw a lot of talk about that on the weather community on Twitter. But even the Euro model for Sunday isn't very potent. It would definitely be a better chance for tornadoes, specifically centered over Arkansas, Missouri, and maybe into western Mississippi, western Tennessee. But even on that scenario, I still don't see a very prolific, strong tornado threat. So I would keep an eye on Sunday. All these days need to be watched closely because any last one of them could uptrend significantly. If one threat downtrends, say like tomorrow, our trough speeds up and it gets out of here quicker than originally forecasted, then that would mean, let's see, that would mean Friday's threat wouldn't be as messy over Oklahoma, and your trough would probably be a little bit quicker moving into Oklahoma, which would result in a better threat for tornadoes. in eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas here on Friday. This is Friday's risk. So keep an eye on all of them for sure. But right now, we don't even have an enhanced risk on any of these days. If we look at day one here, of course, we have our marginal tomorrow. We have a slight, I think this one has the best opportunity at the moment. I think this has the best opportunity to be a level 3 out of 5. And that would probably be centered over the Omaha Metro. Friday, like I said, I think the best chance is Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas. But even then, I don't really feel like it would be that potent of a setup unless something changes with our timing. Saturday is a big toss-up day. Saturday really depends on what happens with the risk on Friday. So I don't really see much at the moment for Saturday either, because most of our models have just a mess of severe weather happening. So I will keep an eye in this area for Saturday as well. And then going on into Sunday, the same area. I mean, geez, Arkansas, my goodness, I feel bad for y'all. Northwest Arkansas is going to be an area to watch on Friday. Much of Arkansas is going to be an area to watch on Saturday. And then a good chunk of Arkansas is going to be an area to watch on Sunday. It's just Arkansas is in the middle of it yet again for all 3 days of severe weather. Now, thankfully, not for tomorrow. So that's good news. You at least have a break for tomorrow. So let's go through some timing here. Show you the threats for severe weather on a model run. Switch it all on over to this one. All right, so we're going to start with a broader view here. Let's use our NAM model. Start with our 500 millibar wind speed. So for today's setup, it's just a broad area of flow over Kansas and Oklahoma that may be able to ignite a supercell or two going into the evening hours. And then into the very late hours of your evening hours. So we're looking at probably closer to 8, 9 o'clock before storms potentially get going in Kansas. Very conditional, fully depends off of if storms can really get going and break through that cap. Tomorrow, not nearly as conditional of a severe weather setup here. So this is your trough for tomorrow evening, about 8 p.m. Eastern time. And it's not a really potent look here. You've got a very large area of just overall jet stream across much of Kansas, Nebraska, into northern Oklahoma. And it looks like the best chance for initiation will be right over that corridor here, eastern Nebraska, northeast Kansas, central western Iowa into northwestern Missouri. That's your best chance for initiation. If we take a look at more of your lower levels here, your lower level jet is not impressive at all tomorrow. So I think that is going to be a limiting factor as well. It just depends on when these storms fire. There's a lot of questions revolving around that. The NAM model doesn't have that lower level jet really kicking in until 1 a.m. And then that would barely increase your tornado threat just slightly north of the Kansas City Metro and around the Kansas City Metro into the overnight hours tomorrow night. But overall, not a very notable setup for tornadoes. More of a notable setup for large hail. Very notable setup for large hail, which is why I think we'll see that 30 significant hail threat introduced over western Iowa, eastern Nebraska for tomorrow. Friday, a lot better look here for severe weather. A lot larger region here of stronger flow across the Central Plains. You can see an area of initiation here. Right in there is where your thunderstorms would begin to fire here Friday evening. And that's pretty early. That's pretty early. You can see the NAM model starts to initiate those thunderstorms around 5, 6 p.m. Friday afternoon and into the evening hours, which that is a lot earlier than some other model runs like the NAM 3K was showing earlier. So we'll need to keep a very close eye on that. I do think Friday could end up being a better threat for tornadoes, probably focused over Oklahoma, Missouri, northwestern Arkansas in this corridor here. Depending on the timing, the sooner the storms fire, the larger the area is going to be impacted. So If storms fire with what the NAM is saying, then that would stretch from Tulsa, Oklahoma, back down into like almost Woodworth, Oklahoma, back into Wichita Falls, Texas, and then all the way up here into Springfield, Missouri, maybe as far east as Little Rock, Arkansas, there, Texarkana area for Friday night into Saturday morning. But if storms fire late, like here, this would be storms firing closer to midnight on Friday. That would result in the threat being a lot more narrow in like this small corridor. So this threat is just 60 hours or less out, and there's already so much uncertainty with how it's going to play out. Then going on into Saturday, like I said, I don't really see a lot on Saturday, but if something were to happen, I would most likely see that happening out here in Arkansas, Texas, into Tennessee, Missouri, Kentucky, right in that area. It looks like too far to the northeast, you run out of instability, you run out of wind shear. Too far to the south, you have too strong of a capping. So it would be right in the middle of these two areas. So that's where I would watch for Saturday. Now we have to lower our resolution for Sunday because our NAM model doesn't go out that far. But for Sunday, the GFS, not very confident in a threat for tornadoes here. It has a extremely weak signal for all hazards, really focused over that same corridor, the same corridor on Saturday, potentially seeing severe weather on Sunday as well. And it looks like just a big-time instability issue. You have all these other threats that just continuously use up instability and mess up our atmosphere. And so there's just not a lot left in the atmosphere here for Sunday. That shows on the GFS model run. That even shows on the Canadian. Now, the Canadian model run does have slightly better instability in Arkansas. But if we take a look here, you can see no storms are actually using up that instability. Take a look at the Euro model for instability, and you do have to note, now we've switched to most unstable instability, which means this is like the maximum instability we may be able to see according to the Euro model. And even the maximum instability is only about 1,500 out here, and that's just not really a lot for such a messy setup. You can see storms are to the west. Storms are firing along that cold front right in here for Sunday. That's where your storms are firing, right on that cold front. There's no signs of prefrontal convection. If we go back to your 500 millibar trough, there's no forcing for ascent out here in Mississippi. Now, if our trough was a little bit slower, say this was, actually that doesn't look terrible. But say this was for like 4 p.m., right? If this is what our trough looks like at 4 p.m. on Sunday, we would have a much more prolific threat for tornadoes. However, this is at 6 a.m. This is at 6 a.m. here. So what that means is there's just not a lot of instability in your warm sector. So any storms that try to fire, which you can see the Euro picks up on few storms maybe trying to fire out there in Mississippi, they just don't have a lot of instability, and they just don't have a great amount of wind shear either. It looks like it's mainly an instability issue there. You see bulk shear is actually quite plentiful out there in Mississippi, so just poorly timed. It looks like all these events are poorly timed. None of them are perfectly timed with the peak of daytime heating here, so they're all very poorly timed troughs. And then going on into Monday here, we'll have to keep an eye out in the mid-Atlantic for a lower end threat for maybe some isolated damaging winds, isolated small hail, possibly a very low end tornado threat out there, right along the Appalachian Mountains in western Virginia, western North Carolina into the afternoon hours of Monday. But overall, not very concerned for severe weather on Monday. The best chance for a slight risk for severe weather on Monday would probably be back out here in Dixie Alley, where we may have some remnant damaging winds, remnant small hail, and possibly a spin-up tornado or two being possible there on Monday afternoon. So my personal opinion on all this stuff is it's just messy. None of these threats, like I mentioned before, none of them look like that moderate risk caliber setup or something extremely significant for tornadoes. They're all very poorly timed troughs. And if they're not poorly timed troughs, then they have a low amount of instability or a low amount of dew points, one or the other. Tomorrow, it's a low amount of dew points and just overall elevated structures. And then for Sunday, just not a lot of instability out there in Arkansas. So um, I would keep an eye on it. All these threats need to be watched closely. Any of them could uptrend significantly, so don't let your guard down if you're in any of the risk areas, where whether it be a marginal risk level 1 out of 5 or a slight risk 2 out of 5, you need to keep an eye on this threat for severe weather, because absolutely any of them could uptrend notably about the threat for severe weather on any of these days. Tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any of them could uptrend. Any of them could uptrend. What's going to happen on Friday? Friday, yeah, all the threats are uncertain. All of the threats are quite uncertain for severe weather. Friday, in my opinion, it looks like the best chance is going to be in this area for severe storms. That's going to be your best opportunity to see a tornado threat. And then, like I said, there is that conditional threat up in Michigan, but that just depends on exactly when storms fire. And we'll keep an eye on it. Really, confidence is going to be fairly low in tornadic activity until day of. Unless something big changes, we just have a lot of model runs being they're all just disagreeing with each other on exactly what's going to happen and where the placement of the trough is and the exact timing of it and how strong it is. So I would just watch them all closely. Thank you, Sam, for the $2 donation. Which day is the best chance to uptrend? I would say Friday. Friday, I think, has Friday and Sunday are the 2 days that I'm probably going to watch very closely for an uptrend. The reason why I say Friday is because of the availability of instability. You have a very large area of instability that on the GFS is uncapped, but the NAM, it's fully capped and a lot less notable. So right now, we're thinking like the NAM is the more realistic scenario where things stay capped and we don't see a lot of daytime thunderstorms. But if that changes and we don't see as much morning convection, Friday could easily be a big day for severe weather. Reason why I say Sunday as well is because all it takes is a little bit less of a messy day on Saturday, a little bit less morning convection Sunday morning, and we end up with a slightly slower trough, and Sunday could ramp up significantly in instability, which right now it doesn't look to be the case. Actually, you can see on that newest GFS, it's already uptrended quite a bit. That newest GFS, that's your old GFS from about 6 hours ago. That's your newest one. It's already literally just uptrended here. That could continue to uptrend. So I would also watch Sunday for notable uptrends. But any of them could uptrend. Any of these days could uptrend. Absolutely any of them. I just think the best chance for an uptrend is going to be Friday and Sunday. Saturday, lack of instability over the greatest threat, which is much of Arkansas. Best region for wind shear and overall severe weather, just not a lot of instability there for some odd reason. It's probably just due to a messy mode. And like I said, I do think tomorrow is going to end up going enhanced for hail. If we take a bit of a more regional look at this, go to pull out. We're actually going to do this one. There you go. Much better, much better. So this is Thursday here at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's when we're going to start seeing thunderstorms fire up in the Twin Cities area. I know you can barely see it at the top right corner of your screen. Those storms should be relatively more of a hail threat, damaging wind threat, low-wind tornado threat. But as we get into the evening hours, we should see more thunderstorms fire here along a cold front in western Iowa, eastern Nebraska. And right now, the HRRR has most of those being elevated. You can see about a 15, 16 temperature degree dew point spread there in western Iowa, eastern Nebraska there. And then as we get into the overnight hours, those temperatures start to decrease. You can see they go from about 72, 74, all the way down to your higher end 60s, low end 70s there. And that allows for a better opportunity of potentially a strong tornado threat out here in and around the Omaha metro area. That also allows for a greater hail threat as well. I think the biggest issue with this right now is very large hail. But all it takes is for these storms to fire a little bit later, dew points to be a little bit better, temperatures to be a little bit lower, and we could very easily see a solid threat for a strong tornado or two in eastern Nebraska, western Iowa for tomorrow. And then we do have our NAM 3K that goes out to Friday. I do want to note this model is currently, it is showing that lower end scenario where we get a lot of morning and afternoon convection across pretty much the whole warm sector. So what that results in is that results in a very messy mode. You can see storms here in Iowa. They don't fire until midnight. So we start seeing thunderstorms develop in Iowa at midnight. Another thing that results in a very low end threat for any hazard in Michigan as well because of that very late initiation. However, even with that late initiation, you can see still we see thunderstorms fire towards 9 p.m. Eastern time here Friday evening into the night hours here across Oklahoma and Texas. And I don't know what to think about this. The environment is very favorable along that cold front. You can see nearly maxed out environment in central Oklahoma. But it's tricky to say exactly where those storms will be because if they're north, you could see on this one, it looks like storms are north of the primary boundary, which means your threat will only be for really hail and isolated wind gust. Let's see if that is the case here. We're going to wait to see. Man, let me zoom this out for you a little bit. What a wild photograph that one is. That reminds me of a lot of very prolific tornado events. However, it's north of the boundary, so you have nearly zero surface instability there. And overall, it's just really, it's a big time hail threat, as you can see that drier air in the mid levels. Not really the best cooling in the lower atmosphere, so it's really not even a really big hail threat there. I still do think this is a hail threat, probably not as big as what tomorrow will be, probably not as large as like the 2 to 2.5 inch hail we could see tomorrow near Omaha. But still mainly a hail threat there. And that's because these storms are north of the boundary. Now, if they were like on the boundary or south of the boundary, let me show you how much more prolific this could be. See if I pull that in a good area. This might be a little bit of convection contaminated. I'd like to pull it like right in here. Just a little bit more west. Let's see. Well, wow. Yeah, so the reason why this is a no hazard sounding is because of capping. Man, a very intense capping in the lower levels of your atmosphere. And very intense capping. Not as bad of a capping there. Still some capping. A little bit of a cap for sure present. There towards the 850 millibar, but definitely better. So it looks like a capping issue is what doesn't fire any storms there. Now, what about that? What about in northwest Arkansas? I don't think you have a boundary to fire thunderstorms there. Yeah, there's no forcing that fires anything there. But if something does fire, let's see here. The reason for the capping is all the morning convection that the NAM 3K has. Yeah, even that is better, but still a bit of a cap. Just a very weak cap. Thunderstorms would be able to overcome this if there was forcing here, but there's not. So you could see here, The NAM3K begins morning convection around noon, 11 a.m. here, and it persists through the entire day. And so what that does is it just continues to build a capping. You can see at one point, actually, your cap was eroded there, but then it goes ahead and starts to become more capped again. There is that narrow corridor, very narrow corridor where it is uncapped. Does it have storms firing there? Nope. Not until very late, and it's just very messy. So I would watch this area. That's where I would definitely watch for the greatest tornado threat on Friday from northwestern Arkansas back into Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, southwest Missouri, like right in there. But overall, I'm not very impressed with any of these setups. Like I said before, I don't see any of these being a very notable, strong tornado threat setup. Tomorrow, it's conditional. It all depends on exactly what plays out with your temperatures, your dew points, where storms fire. Friday, it just simply depends on when storms fire and where they fire as well. Saturday is up in the air, really. Saturday's the day with probably the most uncertainty out of any of the days. And then Sunday depends on what happens Saturday. And Monday just looks like more of a remnant threat. You know, damaging winds, spin up tornadoes, small hail, Dixie Alley, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Maybe a low wind tornado threat in the western Appalachians as well. West NC, West Virginia. Western Virginia. Not actually West Virginia, but Western Virginia. Let's go back over to... Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at your long range. I know some people are probably wondering about that. Let's see what's going to happen when I go to Talladega. Let's go all the way out. A very underwhelming late April. Very, very underwhelming late April there. Just insta-hide that person there. Yeah, not really much to speak of here. A little bit, probably a bit of a cold front dry line setup there in your western plains. But very, very underwhelming, which is really good. I would very much enjoy an underwhelming late April. Now, what does the Euro have to say? I hate that. I don't like that. Those tiny little kinks in the jet stream, they bring small hail, damaging winds, and a lot of rain to certain areas. You could see that certain area that gets a lot of rain. Look at it. It tracks right across Arkansas into Tennessee. Right in there. Thankfully, that stays north of Talladega, though, so... But yeah, we've seen that before. We saw that in Louisiana. If you remember Northeast Louisiana, Western Mississippi, we had like 2 to 3 days worth of a moderate risk and high risk of excessive rainfall. I don't know if that was really early this year or late last year we had that. But it was from a little kink in the jet stream like that. They can bring a lot of rain, some hail, and some damaging winds. Typically a extremely low tornado threat, if not near zero tornado threat with those. But no big notable troughs. These little kinks here, they're going to change. If we go to like the model run yesterday, they're completely different. Yesterday model run again, completely different. They're going to change like that because they're very subtle little areas of flow. So they have a lot of uncertainty with them. So it looks like we may get a little lull in notable severe weather activity. Hopefully that will be right when I end up going to Talladega, and it looks like that would be the case. You could see that high pressure builds in literally probably the day I leave for Talladega. That high pressure builds in, keeps us relatively inactive. And what that means is we will probably have an active early May. Now that's what I see here. An inactive late April probably means active early May. You could see, actually, that's the case. You could see a trough here that stalls out over the four corners. That brings chances of lower end severe weather. And then another trough, May 2nd, 3rd here as well. But none of them, at the moment, none of these look very notable for severe weather. I don't see any very solid signals. Take a look at your medium supercell composite. Very, very, very large areas of just lower in chances of severe weather. Basically, that means there's no confidence in severe weather happening, but there could still be, these lower end setups where we get a little kink in the jet stream like this, little kink that might spark up some thunderstorms, try to spawn the threat of severe weather, but none of them are very notable. Now let's take a look at our favorite long-range guidance and see what it has to say about these threats for severe weather. Alrighty, so taking a look at our favorite graph. Not confident in a lull of severe weather. I see a large area of just maintaining the threat for severe weather through the rest of April. After we start severe threats here tomorrow, which is the 17th, we just continue with these severe weather threats for the rest of April. I only see really two that are notable. This is Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday look like a good threat for severe weather. Then that goes back down and it stays pretty low, and then it does increase again on the 28th. So a lot of question marks. That's what I see here. A lot of question marks on what's going to happen. A lot of ensembles just everywhere. If we look at the ensembles on a different chart here, none of them really stick out for very high-end days. You can definitely see the threat on the 19th, which tomorrow's Thursday. So that's what? Saturday? On the 19th, I think that's Saturday. Saturday, there's definitely a threat. Sunday, there's a threat, but it's not a very high-end signal. But yeah, just a very, very large differences between model runs here. Basically meaning that forecasting is going to be a pain in the tail for the rest of April. Long-range forecasting is going to be atrocious. Which is another reason why you need to be hyper weather aware. All these threats for severe weather, they can all uptrend last second or downtrend last second. So we just need to monitor all of them closely, keep an eye on them, and see exactly what happens. Of course, we will be live tomorrow, likely live, daily live streams from now all the way till at least Saturday. We're going to be, ooh, man, I just remembered it right when I said that. Friday. I've got plans on Friday. It just slipped back into my mind for once I remembered something. I've got plans on Friday, but I should still be able to do a late live stream. I will just be late to the party on Friday. So if storms do fire at like 4 o'clock on Friday, I definitely won't be able to stream, but if it holds off, I'll be able to start stream probably. I probably won't be able to stream till like 6:30 or 7 on Friday. 6:30 or 7 on Friday. Depending on exactly how the severe threats look, as well as how my plans go. So, definitely we'll be live tomorrow. For sure, we'll be live tomorrow. That's Thursday. I'm for sure going to be live at some point on Friday. For sure going to be live at some point Saturday. And most likely we'll be live on Sunday as well. Monday is just going to depend on what happens. If it's a Dixie Alley threat, we'll live stream it on Monday. If it's a Mid-Atlantic threat, I'll probably potentially chase it on Monday. Depending on how high end of a threat it is. Or maybe neither. Who knows? That's one of the trickier days, because if it's a good threat for severe weather in my area, then I'm going to chase it. If it's not a good threat, then I'm going to either live stream the threat in Dixie Alley, or I will end up just not doing anything on Monday, so we'll see. But I'll be live from daily live streams starting today all the way through Sunday. Daily live streams. Monday's a little a bit of a question mark there. Like I said, Friday will probably be a little late to the party because I have some plans there. And then late April, that is a high plains trough right there. That is insane. That is pure insanity. And you know what? I would be able to cover it. That is the day I get home from Talladega. That is insanity on the Euro model right there. Look at the difference between the GFS and the Euro. One shows a widespread prolific tornado outbreak across the high plains and central plains, a very large area of significant defluence aloft here, resulting in very widespread severe storms all the way from southern Texas to central Minnesota, even into eastern, northeastern Illinois. And then the other one shows light rain in West Kansas, light rain in western Oklahoma. Just completely different scenarios for the end of April. Completely different. Let's look at the ensembles here. Yeah, the GFS is not confident in the Euro at all. The GFS, none of our 20 ensembles agree with the Euro there. So just a lot of uncertainty. There's not really a good point at looking at the model runs this far out anyways. They're typically inaccurate, but now more than ever, they're going to be extremely inaccurate because we literally have uncertainty on tomorrow's threat, and that leads to uncertainty every day after that. We've got a lot of uncertainty for exactly what's going to happen tomorrow, a bunch of uncertainty on Friday, a bunch of severe weather uncertainties on Saturday and Sunday. And so that just means there's just a lot of uncertainty after that. I'm not really worried for late April, no. I was just saying the Euro shows a very prolific scenario there. Tell me what I'm overhyping here, inverted cell. I'm not overhyping anything. And this, I'm just telling you what the model run's outputting, but it's not going to actually happen. You can see the model run before that, completely different. Like, literally, one of these show legit, like, nothing happening in late April, and then the other one shows a big-time severe threat. Completely different scenarios. So, we just got to take it one day at a time, one storm at a time. When we get to these active stretches of severe weather, it's very difficult to forecast accurately. So you just got to take it one day at a time. That's why uptrends can occur out of nowhere, because if one threat underperforms and doesn't use a lot of instability, that can translate into the next day, and thus the next day becomes a bigger threat. So overall, main thing to take away from this live stream is just stay hyper weather aware over the next coming days. Make sure you are paying very close attention to the Storm Prediction Center and your local National Weather Service. If you are in any of the highlighted areas, here's today's risk. Not going to see much, just an isolated supercell or two, some small hail, damaging winds, maybe a spin-up tornado towards 9:30 Eastern Time tonight. Tomorrow, we could see an upgrade to an enhanced risk level 3 out of 5, primarily for large hail. Around 2.5 inch in diameter will be possible. Also, we do have an opportunity for a strong tornado threat tomorrow, but that is entirely on exactly where storms fire. If they fire north of that boundary, they're going to be big-time hailers. If they fire on or south of that boundary, they will be all hazards being a possibility with them. Friday, very big question mark, but the area I'm watching the most is the threat for all hazards out here in Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. Saturday has a bunch of uncertainty with it, a lot of uncertainty. Right now, models look to be agreeing on the best chance for severe weather being somewhere in here. But again, it's a lot of question marks, so that could change. But that's where models currently have the best support, being the threat for severe weather on Saturday. Sunday, also a lot of uncertainty, but still looks like the greatest threat should be focused over this corridor in here. A lot of question marks on how notable that may be. Some models show, damaging wind, small hail. Other models show the potential for an outbreak here on Sunday. It just depends on what happens on Saturday. So that's what it's going to depend off of. It's going to depend off of whatever happens the day before. What leads to overconvection, what doesn't lead to overconvection, what happens. What happens the day before. Because if we see a lot of overconvection Saturday night into Sunday morning, that's going to mean Sunday's threat's going to be a whole lot more messy. Whereas if we see like no overconvection Sunday morning, then that would mean Sunday's threat could be potentially a little bit higher end. One of those slightly higher end scenarios is the Euro model, but even that struggles with instability. And then the GFS is your lower end scenario where we just have a terrible trough and pretty much low instability. Thus, it results in not much severe weather. But that's going to be it for this live stream. We're going to wrap it up here. Just a quick 1 hour briefing. I'll be live tomorrow, probably around the same time, probably around 6 p.m. Eastern. Just keep an eye on the channel. Make sure you have that notification bell set to all so you know when I go live tomorrow. Thank you, mods, for Mod Chat. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, just make sure you're hyper weather aware over the next coming days. A lot of uncertainty revolving around these threats for severe weather. We're just going to keep a very close eye on them, see how they pan out. And yeah, that's going to be about it. Once again, just stay hyper weather aware out there. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I think they could upgrade tomorrow to an enhanced risk for some large hail over there near the Omaha Metro. But that's going to be it. Stay safe. Watch severe weather. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's live stream. Have a great rest of your night. Goodbye. stay safe for severe weather. Thank you, mods, for on chat. Have a great rest of your Wednesday night. Goodbye.